Really good morning, Mary and John. It's nice to meet you, and I'm really happy that Carol, your insurance agent, introduced us. I've worked with Carol for many years, and she does really great work for people, so it's always nice to meet people that she's in touch with. And congratulations, too, on selling your business. That's quite an accomplishment, and if it's like other people that we've worked with who've sold their businesses, it was decades of hard work in the making, and the sale itself probably had so many moving parts. You thought your heads were going to spin off, and in many cases probably wanted to call off the whole thing entirely. So congratulations on that. That's fantastic. Just to reiterate what we talked about at some of our introduction and gathering meetings, for us, when it comes to financial planning, it's all about the process. The first iteration is always the most challenging. Never mind when there's a recent business sale. That just makes it even more complicated, as you guys know. So we've combed through your investments, your insurance, your tax records, cash flow, assets, liabilities, all the stuff that you'd sent us, and then went over your goals, the hopes and dreams that we talked about, to try and establish where those met up well with your strengths and where they didn't meet up well with each other, with some weaknesses and some areas that could use improvement. For those areas, we'll make specific recommendations on what you need to do, and it'll be up to you on if you'd like to immediately hit the ground running, if you'd like to get some more information, or if you'd like to put it on the table for the time being. But as we went over to, and we always want to stress this, the most important part of our process is continued review. If we throw the giant binder that we have for you guys at you and say, good, here's your plan, good luck, we haven't made your situation any better, and most people who do things that way, those actions never get completed. It sits on the shelf of good things to do, and that's pretty much where it sits. So by reviewing regularly, we can check on the actions that have or haven't been completed. We can answer questions as they come up as you're trying to do these things with your accountants and lawyers and other people that are part of your team. But we also, in those review meetings, identify new things. Life's going to continue to change. The market's going to change. Our expectations are going to change. The economy is going to change. And so accordingly, we're going to update our recommendations as those things happen. Again, we always want to remind you that after these types of meetings, most people feel pretty beat up because we focus a lot on fixing areas that could use some help. And I'll continue to do my best to convey how positive your specific situation is. You guys have done a wonderful job of running, selling a business, having a family, planning for retirement, all that stuff. And so even though we do make lots of recommendations to help, we never want to lose sight of the fact that you guys should really give yourselves a pat on the back for what you've accomplished over the last many decades. But like I said, the first iteration is always the hardest because the list of items that can be improved is long, and it requires some legwork, both by you, by us, and by the other team of professionals that you surround yourself with. But as we continue to go through this process on an ongoing basis, what happens is the list becomes shorter, and then we're able to focus in on more minute details as we go along the way. And thanks for sending us all of the documents, information that we needed, answering all the follow-up questions that we sent after we received stuff, providing the contact information for your lawyers, accountants, and other professional contacts. We'll go over the plan in a moment, but before you start perusing the words on this and the following pages of the sheets you have in front of you, I want to provide you with kind of how the format works. So the front page of the financial plan will always have your current situation, your goals, and the actions that we're recommending. And the actions that we're recommending will always be in a different color. They'll always be in blue or some other color. This way, if it is sitting on a shelf, or if you want to call us about something, or if you ever need to refer back to the document, you don't have to fish through the rest of it to find what we're trying to recommend or what goals we're trying to accomplish. Typically, everything from that section fits on a single page. This being our first review and set of recommendations, and with the complexity of your situation, we did kind of leak onto the second page. But as we get stuff taken care of, we'll shorten that up, and it'll be much more manageable. So if you look, we have your client profile. Just shows who you are, your ages, and your family situation, and then we go down into goals. These are the goals for today. These will change over time, but we want to let you know that every action that we're recommending, everything that we want you to do, is going to somehow accomplish one or more of these goals. or if it comes at the detriment of one of the goals, it's to really help accomplish another goal. And so we'll always go over how they relate to your goals. So we want to make sure that you reduce any estate and gift tax liability, make sure your planning documents are all in order for whatever could happen. We want to review your insurance contracts and discuss the implications of going into long-term care facilities and if insurance is the answer there. We want to reduce personal income taxes, and we want to recommend a portfolio that meets your investment needs and expectations, as we've talked about your risk tolerance and what you want this money to do in retirement, and as we provide some insight on inflation and performance expectations and the prudent risk that we'd be willing to take in the portfolio for you. So the next section you see there in blue, that's our recommendations. We're going to skip that. That's going to be our consolidated list of all the things that that we're about to go over. And so going down underneath that, based on your risk and how you consider investments and your restrictions for investments, you'd mentioned making sure we don't support any tobacco companies. You guys have an above average risk tolerance for a couple of your age, both because personally you have an above average risk tolerance and because you have a fair amount of money that we can deploy for you and still keep plenty of money safe for emergencies and opportunities that may pop up. So continuing, we go down, we look at your financial health. This is when we start analyzing your situation. First of all, before we make any recommendations or want to change anything about your situation, we want to make sure that you're paying your bills. So we make sure we look at your cash flow, your net worth, see what debt you have outstanding, look at hard assets that you have, and make recommendations from there. With your situation, as you guys have surmised, you have a lot of cash on hand, and that doesn't couple well with your risk tolerance. So one of the things that we're going to recommend coming forward is we deploy some of that extra cash that you have in the bank CDs and add that as part of your invested assets to help accomplish some of our other goals. Next, we take a look at risk management. The best financial plan on the planet doesn't mean anything if you don't have home insurance and your house catches on fire. So we want to take a look at how you're protected, make sure you're protected adequately, and then make recommendations from there. Luckily with this, your substantial liquid assets give us some time flexibility, because a lot of times when we make these recommendations, something's on fire, it needs to be fixed right now. We don't want to belay the immediacy of the situation. However, there are some things that we do want you to look at with your insurance agent over the next month or so. One of the most detrimental risks, as you brought up, because you brought up this specifically to the estate, is extended long-term care. And anytime we assess risks about probability and severity, an extended long-term care stay has a moderate probability of happening, but the severity to the estate is extremely high. Along with that, the costs of long-term care, both facilities and people that you can have at the house and other types of long-term care that aren't necessarily at a facility, are increasing at a very substantial rate. Based on the assets that you have, we want you to consider getting underwritten for a tax-qualified and partnership long-term care insurance policy. It's a long-term care insurance. Few companies offer it now in comparison to 10, 20 years ago, and it's very expensive, and the underwriting is pretty strict. So a lot of times what we like to do, let's get with your insurance agent, let's get the underwriting done, see what gets back to us, and then we can make some decisions from there. There are some tax breaks we can get on the premiums paid, and there's some benefits to estate retention with the different states. And so that's stuff that we will address as we get to see what is available out there in the marketplace for you. Another thing with our risk management was your homeowner's insurance policy on the primary residence was a little bit light. We need to bump that up to about 80%, at least 80% or more of the home's value. And that's something we already talked to Carol, the insurance agent, on that, and we'll have her start shopping those policies out. Another thing is because you no longer own the business and even though you don't participate in risky activities, based on your net worth, you should probably consider purchasing an umbrella policy just to cover you from a particularly nasty peril or a series of them if something were to happen that would be above your homeowner's insurance policies. And again, Carol, the insurance agent, she'll take care of that for you. One of the other things that we'll have her do is underwrite you for life insurance at the same time as we're underwriting for the long-term care insurance. And we just want to see what's out there in the marketplace for you. And even though you're covered from a coverage standpoint to cover each other's income if one of you were to pass away, as one of your goals is to maximize the estate and minimize taxes owed at the time of passing, a life insurance policy in addition to what you guys have may be worth looking into to help accomplish those goals. And the last thing from a protection standpoint is the inverted Jenny stamp, which I would love to see someday, is not currently insured. So we'd like to get a collectible insurance policy on that specifically insures the stamp's value just in case anything were to happen or you would need to make a claim on that. Carol will take over the planning on that, but it'll just involve an appraisal and then an issuance of the policy. With regards to the investments, your investment allocation has performed, as you know, absolutely fantastic. When we ran our quantitative analysis on it, you're actually getting better than our market expectations for how investment accounts should perform. So we're very, very happy with that. However, it is very, very concentrated. So the stock portfolio specifically is very concentrated to 4 stocks. This is a timely time to have this meeting because there are losses in the account. So we can work with your accountant to develop a tax loss harvesting strategy that allows us to rebalance the account, which means take those 4 positions that you're currently in and sell some shares, purchase some new securities, not create a taxable situation for you to an extent that your accountant will be comfortable with, but start adding securities that will help diversify the account, spread the risk over more securities, and produce income that's going to come at a more tax-advantaged way for you guys when you get your monthly income. We looked at the mutual fund portfolio. That's in line with your risk tolerance from an investment standpoint. There are gains in the account, so even if we wanted to make any changes, it wouldn't be a great time to do so, but it's something that we'll want to continue to monitor as your situation changes. For the qualified accounts, madly in love with John's 401k. We'll have to do some required minimum distribution or gift planning in the near future, but not for a couple of years until we reach required minimum distribution age. And for Mary's 403b, the only recommendation we'll make there is a reallocation. It's a little bit conservative, and the type of fund that it's in will continue to get more conservative as you get older. And so we'll take a look at the list of investments there, possibly think about putting it in an IRA and use some investments that better reflect your risk tolerance. When we went over your retirement planning, looks like cash flow for the foreseeable future is going to be fantastic. As you know, the installment sale is going to cover a huge amount of your income over the next few years, and then the substantial assets that you've saved will be able to replace that income when that stops. Your allocation, we still like there, so our expectations for how your accounts are going to perform, it's even after we reallocate to our recommendation, which still continue to outpace inflation over the long term. This will help make sure you can still put gas in the car, buy groceries, travel, and as prices go up, you'll be able to keep pace with the prices as they increase over time. When we looked at your income tax planning, not much you can do about the installment sale in the short term. One of the things that we're going to keep on our medium-term burner is taking some of the 401k and 403b money and look to use Roth IRAs or make qualified charitable distributions or a combination of both to get the money out of that taxable realm into a tax-free realm. Try and keep your income taxes down to the best of our ability, and we'll work with your accountant over the long term to do that. Also, with our investment recommendation that we went over, the use of some tax-free income in the stock account will help get your income taxes down for for this year, next year, and subsequent years, especially as you're getting money from the installment sale. When we went over the estate plan, one of the things that we'll have you work with your estate lawyer with is retitling a lot of your assets. The estate is heavily weighted towards ownership for John. CDs, the mutual fund portfolio, the vacation home, chief among those three. So that could cause problems when calculating an estate tax if the values of those accounts continues to rise at the pace that they're doing so, or estate laws change and we'll have some lower estates to work with. And those items have to wash through probate if something were to happen. So we'll work with the estate planning attorney. We'll use joint accounts with survivorship, or if part of their recommendation is to set up some trust ownership for non-retirement physical assets or non-retirement cash and invested assets, then changing that ownership will help relieve the estate of being so close on John's side of being at the estate tax limit. Your assets are high, as you guys know, that we need proper estate documentation. Right now you have simple wills, which are work well, but with the complexity of your estate and the dollar amount that's in there, you need to have on file healthcare proxies, financial powers of attorney, trust documents, and any documents they recommend to make sure that not only are you guys okay with one another if one of you were to pass away, but that if something were to happen where there was an incapacitation issue, where you'd be okay with who would make decisions for you, how they would make decisions with regards to money and health if something were to happen to you. A little bit minor, but we want to make sure that beneficiaries on the life insurance and the annuity are titled correctly. We want to keep that on the radar because if we have generated up trust documents and other things, we want to make sure that the beneficiaries, which you do have listed on your insurances and annuities, but are titled in the correct way. And then lastly, with the estate planning, based on your wealth transfer goals, consider starting annual gifting. We'll work with your accountant and your estate planning attorney to work on annual gifting to eventual beneficiaries, at or underneath their annual exclusion limits, to start distributing the estate. And we could use qualified charitable distributions out of the retirement accounts that will help get our tax liabilities down and alleviate some tax issues if those accounts were to be inherited. And so it was a long-winded way for me to go through all those things. Again, planning meeting number one is always the most challenging because it seems like there's thousands of things to get through. But what I want to do is direct you back to the first page. All the stuff that we just went over, all the discussions we've had, and all the discussions that we'll have in the future, at this point, they're based around all the stuff on this first page and a half. 4 goals that you guys have let us know are yours, and then how each of our recommendations will help you achieve those goals. If you notice, we put little numbers next to each one of the actions, and it tells us we're making this recommendation not to have you go spend a bunch of money to build trust, but to accomplish this goal. We want you to apply for a long-term care insurance policy to accomplish this goal, and that'll always be the case on these. And so, although it seems a little bit daunting with the stuff that we just went over, this is the heart and the soul of it here. And from there, we'll start making this into our checklist, get everybody actions on who needs to do what, and then we'll check in on how everybody's doing with this regularly and make changes as appropriate. But anyways, thank you very much for the time today. I apologize for meeting number one for me to be doing most of the talking. Most of subsequent meetings are more interactive. But here's where we're going to start. We'll get to work on this, roll our sleeves up, and we'll get these goals solved the best way we can for you. Thanks, guys.